Welcome to Aaliyah Creative. April here, and we are going to be in my Just Play composition notebook today. And we're going to work from one of the prompts that I put in. And I selected Pidge Bakes Cookies, and we're just going to try to find a page that already has a background to get started. And what I really want to talk about is the value and challenge of working on top of colored pages. And this is something that is probably going to give imperfect results, which is why I like it because it challenges me and it takes away that idea of perfection because I already know that I'm working with some challenges and that what I create is probably not going to be perfect. And that's great. When I go into it with that expectation, it's really powerful. So, the first thing that I'm doing is just sketching out the loose lines of my character, Pidge, and he is a pigeon and he's a bit of a problem. But today he's just baking cookies. Usually he makes a mess, he creates intentional problems, he gets in the way, and his cookies are going to look a little off, and that's probably the result of Pidge. So we're going to go over that next with our Sharpie Creative marker, just so that we can kind of have something where we're going to block in the idea of colors on top of this page. So this is in my composition notebook. It's already imperfect because you can see that the paint in the background is allowing the lines to show through. So we already know this isn't going to look perfect, and that is okay. We can see that I've done a very wonky border that was just very hand doodled, very loose. And for Pidge, he is still a character that is a work in progress. So when I draw him from my mind, he doesn't always come out like the Pidge whenever I look at like the image that I drew of him that's perfected. I mean, he's not perfect anyway, but he's just something I like to have. So in my prompts, I will put in, sometimes some of my characters doing something. Now, these are things I probably wouldn't normally think to draw, and so that's the power of the prompt. So let me know in the comments below if you have ever worked off of prompts that you've created or prompts that someone else has created. Did it work for you? Was it challenging, or was it something that kind of stressed you out? Because I know in the past prompt challenges have stressed me out, but it's generally because I went into it with an idea of perfection. I had an idea in my head that I wanted to have out on paper. And then when I put pen to paper or marker to paper, paint to paper, it didn't always come out. And that would leave me feeling bad, really bad. And, that's not fun. But what I've learned is by working in a composition notebook, it's super cheap paper, it's not a great quality. I work with a lot of inexpensive supplies in here, not always, but like this is a Sharpie creative marker, which is a type of acrylic paint marker. And they're kind of affordable when you compare them to, Posca or some others. I do love my Poscas. I will always have a special place in my heart, but I like these Sharpie creative markers, particularly the brush tip ones. And again, the coverage on it, you're going to see that I'm doing several layers here because you are seeing a lot of that come through. Now, another challenge is I am working with an orange marker here to try to get the beak and legs orange. But because I'm working over the pink, it's coming out a little more yellow, even after I do several different coats. And that's okay because, again, not perfecting, right? I am playing with it. I am challenging myself to use my supplies to try some new things. And at the same time, I'm going into this with the expectation that this is for fun and for experimentation. It doesn't have to look 100% like my character, or, for instance, if this were a prompt with a butterfly, it doesn't have to look like a butterfly. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's butterfly. In this case, it doesn't even have to be an exact replica of my character, just a general idea. So, part of the thing that I like about the characters is that for me, I like them to be a little hand drawn and wonky. And they're best done with pencil. So anytime I'm using something where it isn't a pencil, you're going to get a slightly different look. For instance, when I take these characters and I work with them in, Procreate or Illustrator, and they'll come out with more precise shapes and not as much of that hand drawn. So they look different. But I think it's great to have kind of a standard object or a go to. It could be something as simple as a star or a heart that you kind of revert back to and that you try in different mediums on different paper with different challenges. So in this, I am just kind of sketching in his colors. I generally use a gray, a purple, a black, and a white for pitch, and his color combination can vary. And because we're working with these markers, we're a little limited. We can't mix them and get some of the shades I might use if I were painting, but we're changing them up a little bit just by drawing little lines and sketching in. This is really fun and very imperfect. I am an impatient creator, and although I value the time it takes to sit down and do a beautiful, perfect piece, and sometimes I do that, but in this case, that's not what we're doing here. We are just being creative. We're just playing. That's why I call these composition notebooks my just play notebooks, because they are not truly a sketchbook, because I do more in them than sketch. They are not a junk journal, because they're not all junk, right? I do use a lot of junk. They're not completely collage, because sometimes I don't collage at all. Sometimes it's memory keeping because it's photos. And so I keep the Just Play journals as a place for experimentation. And because they're very easy to work in and very low cost, it's a little bit of a hassle sometimes to prep the pages with the paint scraping. Although most of the time I love the paint scraping. It's a very therapeutic thing for me. And I don't know if I've actually shown the technique, even though I refer to it a lot in my videos. So I will try to get that. It's so easy. It's literally you take some paint and you scrape it on using a credit card or a scraper. I use a fondant or a pastry tool actually for mine, just a plastic piece. And I do enjoy the look of those backgrounds, and they already set me up to be imperfect because they're a mess. And that can really allow me to let go of the idea of perfection that can get in my way and in so many other creative ways. Is, for years I struggled with calling myself an artist. I really didn't think I had any skill or ability, but I could draw cute things, right? That was and I was creative. So I knew those things, but it's because I was always trying to perfect and live up to this idea of what an artist is. And when I learned to let go of that and just focus on the process and the joy, it got better. Now, here's where Pidge's cookies. All right, he is a pigeon. He will eat just about anything. So these cookies, it's possible that they are cookies. It's also possible that they're birdseed cookies, and they kind of could be baked. Some of them look a little more like baked potatoes. So I went in with a brown. I didn't want like a straight brown. I wanted a lighter brown. And as you can see, it's not really doing. It's not, but that's okay. And we're gonna put some finishing details on them in a minute. It really probably makes them look worse. But again, not the point. We're just playing. We are just having fun. You can see that I have changed my mind on his face. He's gone from gray, now he's back to purple. And working in those lines, giving it some definition. He's so weird looking, and again, it's not the perfect representation of him. But that's okay, because this is just a prompt that I created so that I could work through it. Now, a little bit about the prompts. I really create them on the go. I try to give some in there that are kind of things that I do in my journal always. So there is almost always going to be like a sticker vomit page, or there's almost always, I've been doing a lot of sticker stories because I've been on a quest to use up some old stickers. And Then there will be usually kind of some pages where it's almost like planning, where it's kind of like documenting or highlighting what's going on. Each of these journals, it's very flexible how long they last me, but generally anywhere from 3 to 5 months is usually in each journal. So I end up with anywhere from 2 a year to 3 a year. And then I also have separate ones that I use for holiday journaling. So you'll see a little bit of holiday journaling in some of these because it is kind of a documentation of the time and the season. But I don't like to have them just full of that. So I have separate journals that I've started doing that are seasonal. So like the Halloween journal challenge videos that are up now is kind of a good example of that. So I'm going in with my zebra click art pens and trying to put in some finer details on this. It didn't really work, and it really is that issue of working over some background colors and not having access to some colors that will pop and stand out a lot. And then I decided to do a little bit of detail on his very imperfect plate. It looks a little fuzzy here in the in the image, but yeah, we're just going in and giving him a good decorate and having fun with it. Yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about this process, about why I use the composition notebooks, why I challenge myself to work this way. Now, I don't always. If I'm not in the mood for a challenge of working over a colored background, then what I would probably do is do the image on another sheet of paper, color it, cut it out, and then glue it on. And that gives you a little bit more freedom composition wise, because if you don't make it too big for the page, you can kind of move it around. You could add in some other elements, and there's a good chance that this page may get some more elements added to it at another time, because that's another way that I work. This is a rare time where I did like a start to finish project, except it's not, because the background was prepped, so I'm lying. But I kind of will get to a stopping point on a page and it may be finished, but I may come back and add more to it. So the page adjacent, you can see that it is just a smash book or junk journal type page where I've put in some brochures and things that are documenting some things that were going on in my life at the time. So the next thing that we're going to do is put in a bit of a title, and I have this little note card piece here, and I'm just trimming it down so that it will fit a little better on the page. And I'm just going to put the title, which is Pidge Bakes Cookies. If I had more room, I might also write a little story or a little journal prompt about what could be going on here, because Pigeon Goop are kind of an ongoing story, and this could be an episode in the story. But yeah, just getting that in there. And I am not focused on making the title perfect. I don't always do a title, but in this case I wanted to document that so I could remind myself why I drew this, because it was a prompt. So the final step is going to be go back to our prompt list, and we're going to mark off that we completed it. This is something I forget to do sometimes, and I end up having to flip back through my journal going, didn't I do this prompt? But yeah, and again, the prompt lists can be anything. They can be a prompt list that another artist came up with. You could follow along with mine. If you're interested, I'd be more than happy to share my prompt. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does mean the world to me. And check out some of my other videos. Bye.